why don't we go ahead and get started? Because there's actually a little discussion here that I think we've got sufficient number of people to make a little progress on, I hope. So I was hoping to have Daph and we could hear a little bit about where things stand. I know the wiki is pending. I can see a little pending note in the LF dashboard, but other than that, I don't know. Timon, I don't know that you have any insight here, do you?
I do not. I've not heard an update.
Okay. Well, I'll keep pressing that issue because it sure would be nice to get the wiki up. So the topic I thought we could make some progress on is we also need, again, under the heading of LF transition, we have an opportunity to set up to rethink our mailing lists. And to tell you the truth, I don't even know what mailing lists we have with Aether because we really don't make an awful lot of use of them. We tend towards Slack and other platforms, but we should have a rational set of email addresses, and they will no longer be at opennetworking.org. They'll be at etherproject.org. This was my quick take on a starting set, and I'll just real quickly, I thought for the two different subcomponents, they have their own dev groups where people developing those components, the SD-RAN and SD-Core can work. I went ahead and added an Ether dev that's a little bit vague, but it's everything that's in the end about Ether that's not one of those two subsystems. So those are primarily developer focused.
Can you hear me?
Project-wide, we'll have a TST. And I think that's not just the TST, it's whoever wants to follow what's going on during the TST meetings. And the last two, I didn't know for sure. Yeah. So info and announce could be synonyms for each other or aliases. And Timon, I got rid of the Ether prefix. Oh, that's the old. Okay.
Yeah, this is the old, and in terms of migrating, but I heard somebody else was trying to break in. Somebody.
So there is an info. Well, there is an info for, info open networking. It's on that's where people would ask questions, or is that where we would post announcements?
Ooh, I didn't know that was posted here. Honestly, info is kind of for generic inquiries coming into open networking. It's really not.
Okay, it's the other way around. Okay, that's kind of the key I wanted to figure out. Okay, so info.
Can you hear me?
Info and support.
Yeah. Gabriel.
Sorry, go ahead, Gabriel.
Info and support are aliases. Mark, is that what you said?
That's what I'm hearing, is that info and support would be aliases.
Okay, let's go ahead and go that way. Those are the aliases for asking for help or asking for info, inquiries. And then let's make this one announce. And then we will try to bring over the, we have to spell it right. You think we can bring over the existing ones?
I don't know. I think we certainly could just email them and ask and suggest people subscribe, but I'm not sure whether we can push them onto the new list or not. It's kind of up to LF's policies.
Okay. Anyway,
Larry?
Yeah, I just want to put those all out there and just open the floor and see what people think.
Gabriel, I can hear you. Larry,
you can hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, sorry. So regarding the SD-RAN dev, what is your plan regarding the ROC?
So the ROC, I did not, it's kind of to me, the ROC can be under the Ether dev umbrella. It's not a standalone project per se, any more than in some sense OnRamp is. They're just two tools to help you manage at runtime or at config time. And they would fall Yeah, I would put those under that heading. I wouldn't carve them out separately.
Yeah, I'm asking this because from the source code perspective, SD-RAN and ROC basically share the same. They are in the same GitHub organization, and they do share certain components.
They
So
do.
that's what I was kind of wondering. What is your thoughts on that part?
Yeah, my thoughts are not to slice it too fine. I think that's maybe my high level principle is I would, if we have to err on one side or the other, I'd rather have too few mailing lists than too many. That's just my own bias because you
Mhm.
never know then which one to use. I
Mhm.
guess if you were interested in the API, you would, let me just call this rock/API to kind of scope it. And then we do on-ramp is CI CD/on-ramp. It's all of those lifetime management thing, runtime control. Both that and SD-RAN happen to use a quote unquote library in common.
So does it mean that they also is gonna include, let's say, Jenkins there as part of CI/CD?
I would think yes.
Yeah, so I mean, one could get away. Our community is not so huge that we couldn't get away with having a single development mailing list. We could have devel@etherproject.org. And maybe that's the right answer. The way I kind of split these out is because SD-RAN and SD Core kind of have a life of their own, independent of the rest of Ether. People will use SD Core, for example, without using all of Ether. In principle, that maybe it was that justified its own mailing list. I personally, I'd be fine if there was just the devel at Ether Project, but
Yeah, maybe keeping it simpler is better than complex right now. I think the volume here is pretty low, and there's been a preference to push things to Slack anyway.
yeah, I would be perfectly fine with that. Is it dev or devel?
Dev.
What does everyone else think?
In favor of this question, a smaller number of lists also, right?
Yeah, okay, well, I don't hear any objections. I think that's a generally helpful that if it gets to be a problem, obviously we can spin out more subgroups. Okay,
And then just to be clear, the TST list is open and public, right?
yeah. Yeah, thank you, yeah. It's anyone that wants to track the discussions that are going on, they attend, they want to know what, I mean, we can announce when meetings get canceled or whatever like that.
It's also useful for, if somebody wanted to talk about something at an upcoming TST to email ahead of time to say, hey, can I put this on the agenda?
Yeah, very good. Okay, so in terms of, you have to join devel, but anyone can join, but we need to get those kind of, anyone to join. That's open and public, but you have to join. And announce, you have to join. Can anyone post to announce? I would think until we get spam, it'd be okay.
Yeah,
I was
keep
trying
it as
to
open.
So the only one that is funky would be info and support, which is you don't have to join to be a member to post. And it's, I mean, I'm imagining there's a subset of what would we call them? People that are willing to respond.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to curate it. Anybody who volunteers to be on that would be appreciated.
Good. Yeah. So anyone can join to respond, to receive.
A
to
volunteer.
respond. Okay, that's the only one.
Question about the announce. Is the announce itself is for Ether announcements or for everybody announced to the Ether community or what?
So who can post? And yeah, and yeah. So my thinking there was anyone can post. Post. I understand that maybe traditionally you might say announce was just official announcements, but I don't, like I said, unless and people start spamming it and misusing it, I think it'd be okay to let anyone post topics of interest there.
How do we differentiate between announce and support? People will start mixing up things for the period of time.
Exactly, yeah, and the info basically, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, info and support, you're asking for help. There are questions coming in. Where announce is you're sharing something with the whole community. They're kind of opposite directions of information flow.
the assumption would be info and support. You would assume not everyone was going to receive that. It was just the most active people with answers, even though we don't restrict who those could be.
Okay,
maybe
I mean,
it
we can
sounds
try.
like-
I believe we can change it later, right? In case it doesn't work out.
Yeah, so on this one, we can limit posters if it becomes a problem.
I'm just trying to kind of use a more uniform.
Yeah, thanks.
And all of this can be sacrificed now, right?
That's right. I think that can be deleted. And I'm just going to add here, we're free to add subgroups as usage dictates. This will get us started, and again, we can always revisit.
Yeah, if I can just say the announced one is the oddest one of them to me. I know it kind of has a history and there is a previous one, but I wouldn't really know if I should ever post to it or if I should ever subscribe to it. What was it used for previously? Do we know?
This is like if there's an event coming up or a webinar or a release announcement, or if you just want to know about major milestones in the project, you want to stay informed.
I think,
Right. Then
Sean,
it
I
would
think
kind
the
of
fact
seem
that we've let
it's-
anyone post is the oddity of this one.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think so, yeah.
I mean, if people would feel more comfortable limiting who can post, we could do that. And that does give it a curated feel that maybe causes people to be more likely to join it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so why don't you just change it? Maybe only the TST and LF can post or something like that. You know, and or maybe just
Yeah, why don't we do that? I think it's closer to what people would expect.
Yeah, that's more what I would expect from it.
I'll make that edit. You making that edit?
I'll make it. Anyone else there obvious?
Yeah, anybody invited can do it.
Yeah, invited. Oh. All right. Thanks. All good with that?
I had just posted one chat message in the currently in some of the code or document we are having reference to omecdev at opennetworking.org. So can we just use like dev or something? Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we, we need to, in the same way, we're going to invite the old list. And I think OMEC dev, is that it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
To join this one.
Okay.
Well, and whatever else there is, we'll have to go do a little survey to make sure we got all of them covered.
So if I understand correctly, basically the dev at etherproject.org is going to replace the omecdev.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a super active mailing list?
No, it's more from the perspective of the question that I sent last week about, for example, in the Docker images, we are saying what is the label for the maintainers that we are using in there. And highly likely there's going to be documentation about that pointing to the omec-dev. Yeah, but that's something that we need to update to dev at Ether project.
Okay, yeah, so there's a whole, I don't know where to put it on here, except I'll just make it a top level point. So next steps are define the groups, and there's going to be a group IO, I believe is LF's preference, and invite people on old lists to join.
Right. And then I think lastly is to put autoresponders on the old lists.
Good. All right, good.
And we've been waiting on the autoresponders to have the wiki up because the autoresponders is a pretty manual process in Google lists. So, we don't want to have to do it twice.
The wiki has got to be it. Yeah, the ticket's been filed. We are waiting for someone at LF to turn it on. And I guess maybe we need to find a better channel to bug them. Okay. At some point, we will probably do something similar on Slack, but for now, we assume Slack stays unchanged for now. All right. So I added a top level topic here. I just wanted to throw it out and maybe kick it off, and we'll come back to it. But we have, and once we have a wiki, we'll have a home to put this. So I'm just pre-thinking that a little bit. We have a set of what you could call use cases. I mean, we've got the core components of Ether, but we've got use cases and people doing trial deployments. And I kind of equate those a little bit so that if you had a use case, there was a corresponding trial deployment. I don't want use cases just to be imaginary. So one of them that we have is Smart 5G, and that's focused on power, and it'll be deployed at WinLab in Rutgers. ESNet is a science field trial. It's going to be at a Department of Energy facility in Colorado. IMAC will be a private 5G deployment it stands for the Indiana Manufacturing. It's in Indy, and it's Purdue.
Yeah, Life to Lab, right?
Yeah, it's a Purdue initiative. Purdue/Indiana initiative. So then I got to these. I wanted to lump these together because on the one hand, it's good to have lots of use cases, but on the other hand, there's a bunch of more narrowly focused research efforts, and so the quote unquote deployment is in the lab. So Shabazz and Bilal at Purdue are doing 5G control plane latency work. Princeton, I don't know, many of you haven't seen these unless you're on the on-ramp Slack channel, but they've got 3 Mosolab Geno Bs connected and to Aether, and have been working with Mosolab to scale up the number of UEs they can connect, and there's been some snafus with that. But they're very focused on a particular research problem. And Intel Labs, I realize that Intel Labs also has deployments. I didn't quite know how to capture this. So the umbrella here is I'd like to find a way for us to talk about and evangelize the use cases that we have, and that in doing so encourage other people to pick up Aether and oh, I see what they're doing with it. I could do something like that too. So that all sounds like motherhood and apple pie. Is there any, are there any other thoughts on this? What I was kind of imagining on this research platform is Aether is a platform that supports 5G research. And here is a set of research organizations that have made use of it. And maybe have a wiki page for each one of them or something like that.
Yeah, sounds a good idea, Larry.
It all sounds good. I just put in Kajit for thought. And they're not here today.
Yeah.
But
so if I get this set up in a kind of demo mode, then people can jump in and add material to it. If I get the skeleton of this posted.
that sounds great.
All right.
So I have a query. Is it only about 5G or 4G also? Because Kajit, I mean, as far as I know, Kajit was initially working on initially using 4G, and they have a use case of private 4G there. So
Ether's not strictly 5G, even though we advertise that. But Tynan, do you know anything more? Are they now starting to look at 5G too?
To my knowledge, they're still focused more on 4G, and they have kind of an older branch of Ether, but that they do have a couple of trial networks up and things going on. And we could ask them next week whether, yeah. So maybe a question here is whether there's appetite for a 4G use case, and maybe could be the model, or maybe if there's an on-ramp model. I don't know if there's an appetite for it and demand for it.
Yeah. All right. So to make this more than just a random discussion, the next step on wiki, once the wiki is up.
Larry,
let me finish that sentence, and then others. All right, I'm sorry, someone else said something.
Yeah, Larry, Kunal here. I just want to add one more thing. Monogoto has also started working on 5G, so they are in initial phase right now. GS Lab is helping them to start on this, so they have started a small POC with us.
And who was it?
Mono
type
Boto.
Good, excellent. Yeah, the more of these we can populate this with, the better. Thank you. And you said that was also 5G?
Yes.
Good. Nice.
It started with 5G.
So would it make sense? So for Smart 5G, you've listed sort of the WinLab deployment, and that happens to be getting deployed on Bubble RAN right now, which is kind of an OAI commercialized stack. Is there appetite for OAI? And is
If
there an
there was-
appetite for SRS RAN? Like,
So my way of looking at this, you absolutely love to see it, but there's got to be someone whose name we can put by each one of these to run with it, to be the representative for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and maybe some of the Intel folks here, at one point in time, Intel was talking about pivoting back an OAI integrated, whatever it is, deployment that was done as part of the Navy. Is that still on in the cards?
We did deliver this to the Navy, right? I don't know, how much they want to advertise it, right? So that might be one of the issue here.
Well, even if we don't advertise the Navy at all, it's just to take the work to have an on-ramp version that brings up OAI integrated with SD core and
Yes.
ROC, right?
Yeah, this was done, and the PRs have been released or have been set. Gabriel, right?
Yeah, but my question, I got confused now, because shouldn't that be part of the research platform that Larry was mentioning earlier? So because there we have the whole end-to-end system as part of this deployment, not specifically like OAI integrated RAN.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a reason. I like my thinking is more consistent with what Gabriel just said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
these are not blueprints. I mean, each one of them may have a blueprint. These are kind of a slightly higher standard of. Another way of saying this is the research platform for me, Timon, is a place to have slightly less claims or something.
So yeah, so help me understand how these different from blueprints. Like, is each one of these a use of a blueprint, or these are just their own specific configurations? There may not be a corresponding blueprint.
Well, hopefully they will eventually be a blueprint for each one. Initially, that may not be the case. They may have taken an existing blueprint or cobbled together something else. The blueprint is the way that they can feed it back in so others could replicate it. But even before they do that, it's valuable to say, look what someone did with Aether.
right, and that's what I understood is going to be captured in the research platform itself, not as individual components.
Yeah, so this is one example. So let me flesh it out just so it kind of fits together. So let me call out Purdue as an example. What they did is they modified SD core
I made it
to
scalable.
demo scalability of the control plane. Princeton, I'm not going to get this quite right, but they are demonstrating how to monitor RAN activity. That's just, and the fact for Intel Lab, I'm going to put words in you guys' mouth, so fix my words here. But you were demonstrating things related to security
Security
and slicing.
Yep.
That it used OAI is an artifact of that.
Yeah, as part of this
that can be fed
end-to-end
back in.
slicing.
That makes sense, Timon?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Does it?
Yeah. Did that make sense?
It does, yes.
So it'd be great to get the blueprint back. I mean, is one takeaway.
So, Larry, from this perspective of the blueprint, does it mean that you are expecting to have these blueprints such that end user can just use the blueprint and deploy the whole solution?
Ideally, yeah. And the other catch is a blueprint has associated with it a Jenkins job that will make sure the blueprint's working every regression test.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go here, the very top of this kind of specs what a blueprint encompasses.
Mm.
It may mean a new repo. It may or may not. It probably means a new variable file, and ideally it includes a Jenkins job.
Mm.
And if that definition of blueprint needs to be altered, we'll fix it. But that's where I sort of a starting point.
Okay, no, I'm asking this from the perspective that this not software being involved, but there is hardware needed. For the case of, let's say, OAI and the multiple slices, we actually use some 5G USB modems for the UE side, and we also use a USRP X310 for the GNOV side.
Oh, you absolutely are allowed in a blueprint to say it requires this hardware.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You have, yeah. Hardware, maybe, I don't remember if I called that bullet out, but hardware assumptions can be part of a blueprint. All right. This is a very generic topic, research plans, or release plans. And it's kind of picking up an ongoing discussion. I didn't flesh it out, except I wanted to make note that Aether 2.2.0 ought to be on the topic list as well. And just as a reminder, it's kind of what we've talked. We're in 2.2.0 dev right now. And again, at this point, Aether is just an umbrella. But it includes a set of blueprints. And so we can pick what blueprints are in and which ones are out. Some of them may be experimental that aren't technically included in 2.2.0. But at some point after we get the new Helm charts and so on for the core and everything else, we can stamp one of these as well. I don't know if there's more to say on the other ones, if any progress has been made.
Yeah, so regarding the SD core, we have been having a lot of progress. Yesterday, we just merged several refactorings of the Docker images. So now the images are way much smaller. And getting there for the SD core release. But from the SDRAM perspective, what are the plans long term? Because there is like more than 200 PRs open there. Most of them are basically dependable and things related to security updates and things like that. So
I missed a key phrase there. Was that all related to SD-RAN or is that still SD core?
No, SD core, we're in good shape. So again, getting ready for the release. At the moment, we are up to date with most of them. We have only 7 PRs open for that. Out of those 7, 2, I hope I can merge them today. Then basically we have fairly clean, list of those. So
yeah.
But from the SDRAM perspective, that's a little bit kind of concern from whether somebody's going to take action on that or whether we're going to establish a plan to start working on that, or what is the plan?
So how many did you say were open?
More than 200. To be more specific, let me double check.
No. That's more than enough, accurate enough.
208 to be specific.
All right. So,
but again, those are not even new features, nothing like that. Those are just kind of like dependency updates. Most of them, right? So there are a few things a few PRs that we have open based on the Navy project that are still open for review. But again, most of them are just dependency updates, security updates, and things like that.
So, Timon, remind me, I don't think we ever officially got 1.5 released, did we?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I think you're right. That's kind of what I remember as well. And I think that the XONF team at Intel was going to, like, I guess with Woojun leading, kind of lead that. But that was a long time ago. Might have been a year ago. Is that possible?
What I'm thinking though is we might go back and revisit that and ask the question, if we declared 1.5, what at that time we thought was 1.5, and it did include some new features and stamped it out. Maybe that really doesn't help anything.
I mean, the key thing here is having a community of developers that care and are going to invest, and consumers as well that will use it, and that's the big gap we have in the SD-RAN space.
So let me put it back to Gabriel or maybe Christian as well. Is there a variant of SD-RAN that you would like to have declared official that helps you along?
So from the contribution perspective, we added the CCC service model as part of the Navy project, and we added a few features related to that, and also some more changes in the ROC that were related to the CCC service model or the managing of the slices. But besides that, yeah, I don't know. Christian, maybe you have some.
Yeah, it's mainly these features and a few cleanups, right, that we are doing, right?
So there's 208 PRs. There's a handful of them that are yours.
No, from ours, probably they're gonna be less than 10. So those are the highly likely is gonna be less than 10, if not less than 5.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is that, again, as I mentioned, we are working on kind of like enabling these GitHub actions on all of these. So trying to bring the code up to date, but there's these automatic dependable open PRs that need to be addressed at some point to at least bring the code to a later or newer state.
Yeah. Well, so I do know that Woojun is taking an interest. He makes these calls occasionally. He doesn't happen to be on today. We take the action of and see if he would propose something. I mean, the dependency updates are maybe those can be knocked off fairly easily. It's hard to say.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Some of them are going to break the whole system. So, and that's why was one of my big headaches during the Navy project when enabling this CCC service model and the features that use the slicing features to use the service model, especially the gRPC and the protobuf related updates. Those basically broke the whole system. So that was a big headache at that time.
Mm-hmm. So, who else in Intel Labs would be? I mean, you've got an opinion here and you've got some background. Is there anyone that would stand behind a proposal and push it through, or are you looking for someone else?
Probably someone else, right? Like it used to be before, right? We don't
So,
have
so
a lot.
you view this as some of the legacy stuff needing support.
Yes, yeah.
And in principle, if we got it squared away magically, you would then be in a better position to make continual use of it, maybe.
Yes, maybe, yeah. We're following, any update to the ORAN spec, right, for the different service model, right, where we can demonstrate, as part of the smart 5G, for example, right, the latest service models and everything, right. So that's what we're doing mainly.
So let's turn it to Alex. Alex, do you have any insight into what to do here, or what the right action would be that helps the smart 5G project and what you're involved in?
So there are some steps that would help, yes. But for example, so while trying to really integrate the SD-RAN, so the rig with some other E2 simulator, yeah, not the RAN sim, we had some issues with the SN1 encoding. So meaning it's a pre-spec which is used in the rig currently, and it's not compatible with the latest spec and the commercial simulator that we are trying to do this. So it has some more, let's say, issues behind. Yeah. So that I don't know if we should address or not. It would be nice to address, but I don't know if we have the community behind to do all of this.
So if you, I mean, I know RAN sim has become a bit of a centerpiece of the work. If SD-RAN doesn't keep pace, I mean, RAN sim is built around, I mean, it doesn't strictly depend on SD-RAN, but it is a subsystem of SD-RAN right now. So,
well, Larry, it does depend on the service models.
Right, it depends on the service models, but it could use somebody else's implementation of the service models.
Yeah, okay, you can just bring the service models themselves.
I'm just.
Well, it should be using
kind of back to Alex, which is, it doesn't sound like you think for the purpose of RAN sim, there needs to be someone in the broader RAN sim community that also keeps SD-RAN up to date.
Well, we should at least keep the rig somehow, yeah, aligned with the latest specs. Yeah, if we keep it in sync with the RAN sim, but it's not according to the spec somehow. And I'm referring here to the SN1 encoding.
Yeah,
it's not useful if we switch, if we change the RAN sim with something else. Yeah, so it's not usable.
Probably something to take into account in here. It says, it's not just about maintenance of here, but what is the future itself? Whether there's going to be enough resources to add features and keep up to date with the specs, with new changes on the specs or new service models and things like that. So, because the dependencies, get updated or get obsolete, and then you need to start replacing those dependencies. And sometimes that implies changing the source code to be able to use that dependency. So that's, you need more resources to do all that work.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that there isn't an obvious community that's stepping up and investing here. And I think, what I would propose we consider is, what if we really just stop investing in the SD-RAN RIC and were to use the OSC RIC, and perhaps the RAN sim flips and starts to use the OSC RIC framework instead? What are the implications?
Well, there might be benefits more than drawbacks, right? Because the OSC RIC seems to be an active community, right?
So yeah, what's the acronym?
OSC.
OSC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's OSC or ORAN SC, depending.
ORAN software community, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Right. So, but one of the things I just heard here is you know, the 5G, smartest 5G work, which wants to use RANSIM, currently depends on the ONOS RIC. And there's some research that has taken place at Intel Labs, and maybe there might be in the future that has used that. If those two, we call them communities, don't see the value in keeping the RAN RIC up to date, then you're gonna have to figure something else out. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Christian, but what would, you know, how?
Oh, you know, it would be usage of OSC RIC, right? As the alternative, right?
So you would move to the OSC RIC. That would be an easy enough thing for you to imagine doing.
Yeah, because otherwise, again, you need resources to just to bring the RIC itself up to a stable latest state to be able to use it, right? So, and that's a lot of resources you're gonna need.
Okay, now let's think of this from an Aether perspective. If you go off and did that, if you didn't fold that plumbing back in, Aether wouldn't have a RIC, and therefore Aether would be SD core plus some others, you know.
Plus the ROC.
Plus ROC, plus whatever RAN machinery you picked. I mean, maybe there could be a set of them there, but SD-RAN wouldn't necessarily be one of them.
Yeah, but there would be some other open RAN, open source RAN option for an Ether on-ramp that would presumably use the OSC RIC and other components.
But my point is there's other work to do to get that integrated back into Ether. And as opposed to, well, some folks at Intel got it to work, but it's not officially part of Ether.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think through what the ramifications would be.
And just an idea, it's also a so-called flex RIC out there. So it's a RIC that comes from OAI.
OAI.
Yeah, so I don't know if that makes more sense or not. I think it's also maintained and active currently. And if we consider also an OAI integration, maybe it would be just easier to use their RIC as well somehow. But just a thought.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. This is OAI.
But there are concerns about the OAI licensing, and so you know, and I'm presuming I don't know if the same license is used for their RIC, but it basically precludes commercial use. And so, you know, for this project, and I know LF more generally has a real interest in creating a more Apache style licensed solution. And the OSC RIC is so licensed, I believe.
Well,
so I think that, you know, there's a lot of logic, I think, in using the OSC RIC, you know, in trying to take advantage of the alignment with LF and moving the Ether project into LF. But really what we would ideally have is some effort that's putting together the stack that's sort of contributing back to Ether, an Ether on-ramp blueprint that uses OSC.
Probably just one general comment in favor of the SD-RAN RIC is that if my memory doesn't fail me, the OSC RIC is developed in C. Flex RIC, I know that is developed in C. This kind of new, how was that, like advice from the White House saying that, or recommending to use memory safe programming languages.
Rust
or Go, which is, you know, basically what it's based on, the SD-RAN is based on. That could be maybe one a benefit from the SD-RAN RIC itself.
Well, and I've not looked at it carefully, but in the past, there was a lot of talk about the superior architecture of SDRAN, the modular architecture, the scalable architecture,
and also,
tolerant.
cloud native deployment. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
think
again, regardless of all of that, you do need resources to be able to maintain, or an active community to be able to maintain the SDRAN. It's not just maintaining, again, to add new features to attract more members.
yeah, no, that's exactly right. So yeah, I don't think there's much argument. I mean, I think there's SDRAN architecture and implementation has some really attractive qualities, but there isn't apparently a community out there right now that is ready to invest in it. And so, if that's the reality, we should face reality.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that RIC gets deleted. It may at some point in time come back, or migrate components of it into OSC. I don't know, but
Well, so consistent with that time, and this goes back to where Gabriel started, which is, yes, there's 208 open PRs, but at least it's there and you can use it if you choose to. And then, we don't abandon, I'm sorry, maybe we abandon it. We don't throw it away. We bind.
Yeah, but my point is, if you don't maintain it, in the near future, it's going to stop working, basically. It's not that it's going to keep
got to
working.
do something. Yeah, that's good.
So in the sense that, for example, during the last year, basically around this time, so everything was working fine, and then one of the dependencies got updated, and suddenly the whole rig stopped working. Then we had to go deeper to see what exactly is happening, and basically one of the dependencies changed the name of the executable. So the SDRAN didn't find the executable it know. So basically it broke the whole thing. So that's what I'm saying. So the fact that it's something that is working right now doesn't mean that it's gonna keep working tomorrow.
No, you're right. You're right. Bit rod, a hyphenated word. Well, we are near the top of the hour, so this was a great discussion. Let's see if by next time we can coalesce around some specific possibilities. I don't know if it'll be decisions. I want to get 5 minutes to the QA update before we run out of time. Kanal?
Yeah, sure. So for GNVSIM test framework, I've completed all the test cases for on ramp, and I have tested most of these test cases, but a few test cases are still failing. So that's where I am struggling right now. But they should be taken care of by this week.
Are they visible in Jenkins?
Right now, no. It's in local right now.
Okay, yeah, as soon as you can put even not completely done version in Jenkins so we can all see it, that would be great.
Sure. Then moving on to the UE ransom integration, there is I just have a proposal for for this, that last time, as we discussed, we can see good. We do not see any issues when we deploy a non-containerized UE ransom with Ether on ramp. So for that, I think we can deploy a non-containerized UE ransom on node 2 using our existing deployment.
That would
pattern.
be, so that doesn't work if you're on with just one node. It won't work with quick start, but it will work with 2 nodes.
Yeah, it works. I tried. I have already tried this, and it works fine for me.
In 1 node or 2 node or both?
In 2 node. node.
Okay, so you haven't tried it on just one node?
Yeah, for non-containerized, I have not tried it.
Okay,
on
that's
single node.
fine. This would be great to see. I think it's okay that it not be containerized if that's the way to get it deployed.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to mimic that setup, like when we have UV ransom on on a separate machine. So, like deploying it on a different node would, I mean, give us that kind of idea, and that specific um, blueprint can be used in uh, multi-node deployment kind of setup.
Yeah, if UV ransom is only deployable on 2 nodes or more, that's a perfectly viable blueprint.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, so seeing the Jenkins version of this, just to have a look at how it works would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll create it.
Thanks, that's good news. Well, there we go. It's the top of the hour. Is there anything else? All right. Thanks, everybody. Till next week. Bye-bye.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.